Hey y'all, Coach InTheFight here, doing a study on the Feast of the Divine Love. Now, I talked about this in a video. Stacy and I talked about it in a video years ago, how the Great Book of True Life was talking about a feast, a new feast coming for the new era, the new Jerusalem and the new covenant. And so in this video, I'm trying to drill down on exactly when that is. Now, I'm using ChatGPT over here, plugging in the information. First of all, with the understanding that what we see in the book of Numbers 28 and 11 is talking about the same date that we see in Exodus 12 and 2. That's the first day of the first month, that particular feast. So as you know, if you work with ChatGPT, it takes a little bit of programming. You have to tell them that you only want to hear from the Bible without any other doctrinal or traditional information. And so that's what we did. And then we got him just talking about the scripture. So let's hear what he says about Numbers 28 and a breakdown of verses 11 and 15 and how it points to a feast that is going unrecognized now, but is also talking about this new feast, maybe even related to the marriage supper. So here we go.
The dawn of the sacred year, Numbers chapter 28 verses 11 to 15, and the first day of the first month. The concept of the dawn of the year in scripture and spiritual thought carries deep significance, reflecting themes of renewal, reflection, and dedication. The offerings described in Numbers chapter 28 verses 11 to 15, commanded by Yahweh for the first day of the first month, point to a much deeper spiritual truth. This day is not simply the start of a new cycle of time but a sacred moment of spiritual renewal. It serves as the dawn of the sacred year, setting the tone for the entire year and reaffirming the covenantal relationship between Yahweh and his people. The spiritual meaning of dawn in Numbers chapter 28 verses 11 to 15. In Numbers chapter 28 verses 11 to 15, Yahweh commands the people to offer various sacrifices on the first day of the first month, marking the beginning of the new year in the Israelite liturgical calendar. This is not just a physical event but a spiritual dawn, signaling the start of a fresh cycle. The offerings prescribed, including the burnt offering, meat offering, and sin offering, represent more than ritual sacrifice. They signify the renewal of devotion and the rededication of the people of Israel to Yahweh. The first day of the first month serves as a moment when spiritual darkness, sins, disobedience, and the struggles of the past year gives way to spiritual light, atonement, sanctification, and a fresh start. These offerings are intended to bring Israel into alignment with Yahweh's will, a symbolic cleansing and reaffirmation of his divine rule over their lives. Dawn and spiritual renewal in Scripture. Scripture is rich with imagery of dawn as a time of transition, a moment when the old is replaced by the new. The first day of the first month reflects this theme of transition, as the people of Israel enter a new year with renewed hearts and minds. Let us consider several reflections on dawn that emphasize its spiritual significance. This dawn, lighted by the memory of my coming to this world through the Messiah, has been illuminated more with your elevation. This statement highlights the memory of the Messiah's coming, which is illuminated with the spiritual elevation of those who follow him. The first day of the first month, marked by offerings and consecration, similarly commemorates Yahweh's acts of deliverance and provision. As we offer our sacrifices, we too are reminded of the grace Yahweh has shown in providing his Messiah for the salvation of the people. On this dawn of commemoration I ask you, what have you done with the law that I conveyed to mankind through Moses? The question here calls for reflection on how we have engaged with the law given through Moses. The offerings on the first day of the first month were an opportunity for the people of Israel to reflect on their relationship with the commandments and to renew their commitment to live according to Yahweh's instructions. The dawn of the sacred year is a time to examine our lives, to evaluate our faithfulness, and to renew our devotion to Yahweh's will. The light of my spirit illuminates you in this dawn of grace. This expression underscores the idea that dawn represents spiritual illumination. Similarly, the first day of the first month was an opportunity to be spiritually illuminated by Yahweh's grace, acknowledging his mercy and provision. As we bring our offerings, we are reminded of the grace that has been extended to us, and how, through Yahweh's mercy, we are able to enter a new spiritual season. In this dawn of grace, the radiance of the Messiah manifests itself to receive you on behalf of the whole world. Just as the dawn of grace heralds the radiance of the Messiah. The first day of the first month marks the arrival of a new season of grace for Israel. It is an opportunity to remember the Messiah's sacrifice, which has made it possible for Yahweh's people to be reconciled to him. The dawn of the sacred year invites us to reaffirm our relationship with the Messiah, remembering his role in our redemption. The first day of the first month as a new beginning. The first day of the first month marks the dawn of a new sacred year. It is a time to reset spiritually, to start anew with Yahweh. The offerings described in Numbers chapter 28 verses 11 to 15 serve as a moment of dedication, offering to Yahweh the first fruits of the new year. These sacrifices serve as a renewal of the covenant between Yahweh and his people, a spiritual reset for the coming year. This is also a time for reflection, for examining one's heart and life before Yahweh and preparing to journey through the year ahead with a renewed commitment to follow his commandments. Dawn and spiritual progression. The idea of dawn is deeply connected with spiritual progression. As the dawn dispels the darkness and brings the new day, so too does the first day of the first month bring new light to the lives of Yahweh's people. It symbolizes the beginning of a journey, where each new day, and each new year, is an opportunity to grow closer to Yahweh and to walk in his ways. Just as the day breaks, gradually illuminating the earth, so too does the offering on the first day of the first month serve as a symbol of the gradual illumination of the soul. A movement from spiritual darkness into the light of Yahweh's presence. Conclusion: the dawn of the sacred year. In the context of Numbers chapter 28 verses 11 to 15, the first day of the first month becomes the dawn of the sacred year, a moment of spiritual renewal, a time for cleansing, dedication, and rededication. The offerings made on this day were not merely ritualistic acts, they represented the reaffirmation of Yahweh's covenant and the renewal of the people's commitment to follow his commands. The dawn of the year, marked by these offerings, is a time to reset, reflect, and recommit oneself to living in alignment with Yahweh's will. For believers today, the first day of the first month, the dawn of the sacred year, is an opportunity to walk in the light of Yahweh, to reaffirm the covenant, and to begin anew. Each new cycle, each new year, provides the chance to be spiritually renewed, to start fresh, offering our hearts and lives as a living sacrifice to Yahweh, just as the people of Israel did with their offerings in the sacred days of old.
All right, so there you have it. So this feast is related to the first day of the first month. We're talking about Numbers, particularly Numbers chapter 28, verses 11 down to about 16. And what's clear there, what helped me to understand, is how you have this feast up here talking about the beginning of the year, and is followed by this feast here on the 14th day of the first month. So that's what helped me to make it clear. And so I'm glad we're able to have a computer to go in and do the math behind it to prove it. Secondary confirmation. But anyway, that ain't it. We actually plugged a lot more information in from the Third Testament of the Bible as we're trying to understand this dawn. We understand the first day of the first month there at evening, no doubt. That's important to notice, at sunset instead of sunrise. That's when the day begins. That's when the year begins, at sunset. And so in this next part of the video, we asked this computer program to put it all together for us. So we're going to hear about the 144,000. Turns out they are being awakened now. This 2025 would actually be the third or the fourth year, no doubt, because we know that 2029 is the seventh year. So some of us are already a little bit behind. The way I do the math here, we started receiving this in the sabbatical year in 2023. That's when he told us he was going to return. Too bad we didn't understand how, or we could have took better advantage of it. But feel glad that you're getting this information now, because we do have a few more dawns to go before 2029. So let's hear about the multitude that no man can number, and the significance of the dawn of the new era.
Dissertation, Numbers chapter 28 verse 11 and the dawn of the feast, the spiritual awakening of the 144,000 and the multitude. Introduction. The dawn of the feast and the 7 years left to 2029. The sacred scripture in Numbers chapter 28 verse 11 reads, "At the beginnings of your months you shall present a burnt offering to the Lord, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 lambs of the first year, without spot, for a burnt offering unto the Lord." On a surface level, this commandment concerns a ritual offering to honor God. However, its deeper spiritual significance touches upon the sacred offerings of our lives in service to God, especially at pivotal times in history when divine teachings are revealed to the people. This verse, speaking about an offering made at the beginnings of your months, points not only to the ritual offerings in the ancient times of Israel, but it also symbolizes the dawn of a new era of spiritual fulfillment, a time of special offerings of the heart and spirit in devotion to God's divine mission. In this sense, Numbers chapter 28 verse 11 is not just a reference to a ritual, but a prophetic sign of the spiritual awakening that is to unfold in the world today. As we stand at the threshold of 2025, we find ourselves in the final 7 years leading up to 2029, a period that will be marked by the fulfillment of a divine prophecy. This dissertation aims to explore the connection between the spiritual message embedded in Numbers chapter 28 verse 11 and the concept of the dawn of the feast, a moment of divine awakening. It will discuss the call for spiritual readiness, the rise of the 144,000 chosen ones, the multitude that will join in the mission, and the profound spiritual transformation leading to 2029, the year when the culmination of this great spiritual movement will occur. The significance of dawn in Scripture. The word dawn holds profound meaning in Scripture. It symbolizes both the recurring events of remembrance, such as an annual spiritual feast, and the commencement of a new era that marks a spiritual awakening of global proportions. Annual dawn. This refers to recurring events that take place at specific times of the year, feasts, festivals, or commemorations. Dawn of a new era. This speaks to a transformative shift, a moment of spiritual renewal that ushers in a profound new beginning, fundamentally altering the course of human history. These two forms of dawn converge in the dawn of the feast that we are now called to participate in. This feast is not a single event, but rather a progressive spiritual awakening that will culminate in 2029, marking the spiritual fulfillment of God's promises for humanity. The annual dawn and the spiritual feast. In Numbers chapter 28 verse 11, we see a recurring pattern. Offerings are to be made at the beginning of your months as part of the ongoing consecration of time to God. This act of offering is symbolic not only of material sacrifices but also of the spiritual commitment that we are called to make. These offerings signify purity, devotion, and surrender to God's will. In the context of this dissertation, the dawn referred to in Numbers chapter 28 verse 11 is not only a literal event but a metaphor for spiritual offerings made at specific times of remembrance, a feast that honors God's presence. This spiritual feast is a recurring event, a spiritual feast of light and renewal that aligns with teaching 306. Those whom I have chosen during this period will need to frequently pray and remain alert so they won't fall into temptation. Just as the offerings in Numbers 28 were presented regularly. The spiritual offerings of our lives and hearts must be made continually as we approach the final fulfillment of God's promise in 2029. The offerings that are to be made on this dawn are not just acts of remembrance but are also part of the process of preparing for a greater spiritual feast, one that will culminate in the gathering of the 144,000 and the awakening of the multitude. As teaching 337 emphasizes, the time is coming when you will offer your lives as sacrifices in my service, to fulfill my mission on earth. These offerings are spiritual sacrifices, laying down our ego, our pride, and our material attachments in service to the greater mission of the Lord. The dawn of a new era, spiritual transformation and awakening. While the annual dawn speaks of cyclical events of remembrance, there is another more profound concept of dawn that relates to the beginning of a new spiritual era. Teaching 28 describes this transformation in cosmic terms. I have received the tribute of all creation, from the major stars to the beings less perceptible to your eyes. Everything is subject to evolution, everything walks, everything advances. Everything transforms, rises, and is perfected. When it has reached the summit of perfection, my spiritual smile, like an infinite dawn, will be throughout the universe, of which all stain, misery, pain, and imperfection will have disappeared. This is the ultimate goal. A cosmic spiritual transformation that affects not only humanity but the entire universe. The dawn of this new spiritual era is the beginning of the fulfillment of God's promises to His people. This transformative period will be marked by the awakening of the 144,000 and the spiritual rise of the multitude. This dawn of a new era will not be a mere event, but a process of global spiritual renewal, and it will take place over the next 7 years. Teaching 17 speaks of this era in the light of dawn. This ray of light has only been one of preparation, it is like the light of dawn when it already announces the new day. Later my light will reach you fully, illuminating your existence and removing even the last shadow of ignorance, sin, and misery. The awakening has begun, and over the next 7 years, it will fully illuminate humanity, ending ignorance, sin, and suffering. The role of the 144,000, the chosen ones who will lead the way. The 144,000 are the central figures in the spiritual awakening that is to unfold over the next 7 years. These individuals are marked by God to fulfill a sacred mission and lead the way for humanity's spiritual transformation. As Teaching 137 explains, humanity will believe. My work has to spread throughout the world. I'll start with 144,000 targeted, who will fight with obedience, with love, and zeal in the time of the wars of beliefs and doctrines. These 144,000 souls are not just a symbolic number. They represent a literal, spiritually marked group of individuals who have been chosen for this mission. They will be the guides, the apostles, the teachers who will lead the world in the final steps before the transformation that will occur in 2029. However, the journey will not be easy. Teaching 306 warns, those whom I have chosen during this period will need to frequently pray and remain alert so they won't fall into temptation. The 144,000 will face great trials. But they will be spiritually equipped to fulfill their roles. But the 144,000 will not be alone in this mission. As Teaching 190 states, many will come to this land that I have chosen and will perceive my light of truth reflected in those who dwell here. Many of them belong to the 144,000 chosen people of Israel who will unite with you to obey my mandates. The multitude will rise in unity with the 144,000, joining in the mission and helping to spread the divine message of salvation and peace. The multitude, those who will join the mission. While the 144,000 are the chosen leaders, the multitude represents all those who will answer the call to rise and fulfill their spiritual mission. They will be the supporters, the believers, and the followers who will participate in the global spiritual awakening. Teaching 350 speaks of this awakening and the role of the multitude. I have told you symbolically that 144,000 make up my chosen people of Israel. You will show the world the saving ark, and through you I will give peace and comfort to humanity. The multitude will play a key role in helping to spread the divine teachings and to bring peace and comfort to the world. The final 7 years, leading to 2029, will be a time when the multitude joins the 144,000 in the fulfillment of their spiritual mission. As Teaching 340 emphasizes, you beloved people, you stand before your Lord on behalf of humanity, you are part of the tribes of Israel, of the 144,000 marked of my chosen people, but some of you are in spirit and others in matter. This call extends to all who hear it, whether in spirit or in matter. The final 7 years, a time of reckoning and redemption. As we enter 2025, the final 7 years before the transformation of 2029, we are living in a time of great spiritual significance. Teaching 336 describes this period. 144,000 must be gathered before my presence at the end of 1950, so that they receive the last orders by which you have to guide yourself to fulfill your delicate mission, to send you to the nations to deliver light, charity, and truth. The time to rise and answer the call is now. This is a time for spiritual awakening, prayer, and readiness. The 144,000 and the multitude must be prepared to rise together in fulfillment of God's divine will. The rewards for answering this call are great: spiritual enlightenment, divine protection, and the joy of fulfilling one's sacred mission. However, those who fail to answer will face spiritual consequences, as Teaching 183 warns. Among them are those who will choose not to fulfill their mission and will mislead and confuse their brethren. Conclusion: the time to rise is now. We stand at the dawn of a new spiritual era. The time to prepare for the feast is now. As Numbers chapter 28 verse 11 teaches us about the annual offerings and consecration of time, we are called to make our spiritual offerings to God during this sacred period, leading us into the fulfillment of His divine plan by 2029. We are entering a time of awakening, and those who are chosen, the 144,000, will lead the way, supported by the multitude. Let us rise together to fulfill our roles, partake in the spiritual feast, and carry forth the divine mission with unwavering faith and dedication. The time is now.
All right, so there you have it, guys. The feast of the first month. Maybe it's not necessarily a feast. It has always been a time of cleansing, getting prepared for Passover in that season. That's always been overlooked. You remember it was Hezekiah who had to do the Feast of Passover in the second month because the first fruits didn't prepare themselves on the first day of the first month, and so they couldn't have a adequate feast in the first month, but they was able to get purified in the first day of the second month and get prepared for the Feast of Passover. And that's what this is all about, remembering that Passover is the marriage supper in our time. We're waiting for this big picture feast, the marriage supper, and then this dawn of these years, these last 7 years, starting in about 2023 to 2029 or something. These dawns are when these first fruits are getting aligned, they're being awakened. And again, it's the multitude that will be supporting them. So all that are hearing this great book of true life, this third testament, and are willing to carry this load to spread this word throughout the world will be part of this mission. Again, hit the like button, subscribe button, comment. Got it. And I'll see you in the next video. Shalom.